Hello again, guys, it is iFree700. We are back with some Warhammer 40k lore. This time, what the fuck is the Death Spectres? Now, the Death Spectres is one of those Space Marines that's kind of a mix mash of a few things. It's actually a very heavy-handed topic, and it's really odd for such a lesser-known chapter to have so much lore ingrained into it. I'm not joking, the Death Spectres have so much lore to it. I would tell anyone who's a newcomer to Warhammer 40k to not watch this. Don't go into the Death Spectres trying to learn them. Do not do that. They are so heavy with so many subjects of lore. Oh, God. For a lesser-known chapter, it's got a lot about it. It's basically what happens when you have H.P. Lovecraft invade the Warhammer universe with his weird, alien, incomprehensible entities. And the Emperor has to have something to fight that. So what does he send? He sends the Persian Edgar Allan Poes to fight him. That's pretty much it. But for those who are more into the lore, more intermediate, this lore is going to be more for you. So let's begin. Right off the bat, this chapter was founded during a very unusual time. It was found during the Dark Founding, the 13th Founding. And this is when the Exorcist chapter also existed. A very, again, weird chapter in its own right. Not necessarily bad, just kind of weird. And this chapter is descendant from the Sons of Corvus Corax, so the Raven Guard. This is why I get the whole Edgar Allan Poe ideas, because they have this dark, grim look on things that really strike me more of Edgar Allan Poe. Now, the Persian thing is actually based on their names. You see, to be a chapter master in the Death Spectres, you will be known as the Megir. And the Megir is a very Persian, Arabic type title. And a lot of the titles that they do have throughout their chapter are also very, very, very Persian inspired. Now, despite having Persian inspired names and Persian inspired titles for similar roles, they do not have like Persian symbolism. So that's one of the downsides. Because after all, we do have like the Iron Snakes and stuff who have like a very Greek look on things. So therefore, some of their symbolism is very Greek in nature. But not these guys. It's just mostly names. As I said, they're a lesser known chapter, but they have so much lore to them. So, about the lore thing. When they were founded, they were strictly in charge of guarding the Ghoul Stars. And for those of you who do not know, the Ghoul Stars is going to have to be its own video, but essentially is a huge space in the galaxy that is just littered with dead worlds, dead suns, dead planets. There's just no life in this sector. And there's a reason for this, except it's still skewed and hidden behind a lot of secrecy as to why. So we can't give definitive answers. But essentially what happened was these weird creatures that do exist, the creatures that we know of, are very Lovecraftian in nature. They just don't exist in the same laws of reality that we do. That's not saying that they're demons. They actually are living things. But they're just so alien. Like some of them can only manifest in shadows. Some of them can actually age you by just being around them. That's actually one of their weaponry, is that just by being around them, you age 50 years for no reason. No reason at all to it. And one of their weapons, they accelerate the aging process so much that your weapon just turns into dust. Your skin and bones just fucking Thanos snap and boom, you're gone. It's very alien and weird and hard to understand. That's why I get the whole H.P. Lovecraft. H.P. Lovecraft, for those of you who don't know, good read on his stories, but all of the creatures that he deals with are just out of this world. There's one story that I really like called Color from Outer Space. Very good read. Don't mean to deviate too much on this topic, but it's very alien to the human mind. It's very incomprehensible. How does it work? How does this alien function? And that's a lot like the Ghoul Stars. It's very incomprehensible, so Xeno, that even the Xenos in the galaxy have a hard time understanding the Xenos that live in the Ghoul Stars. But essentially, an event happened known as the Pale Wasting, where either a Xeno or something happened that just obliterate all the human life in the sector of space. And I'm not joking, like, everything there used to be human. Now it's just gone. And it's pretty damn recent, too. It was in the 34 to 35 millennium. And we're right now, as it stands, with Gilliman returning and stuff, we're in the 41st millennium. So it's only like around 6 to 7 millennium ago. It's pretty damn recent, considering the Horus Heresy was like 11 to 10 millennium ago. And the Age of Strife was around, 15 millennia ago. So it's pretty damn recent, the Pale Wasting. And it's pretty damn scary how much of the territory was just gone. Just outright obliterated. No identification of how they were obliterated. No signs of weaponry or battle. Just dead. Husk of solar systems that exist throughout this area. And this has been what the Death Spectres have been charged with upon their creation, is to guard this sector of space and stop the Pale Wasting from ever coming again, and to stop it from ever occurring or continuing its rampage, whatever the fuck it was. It could have been a weapon of mass destruction like the Necrons. It could have been just this random alien species who decided now's our time to shine and stick our fist up the Gold Emperor's ass. Speaking about the Gold Emperor's ass, there's actually no Astronomicon in this region because it's so far away from the rest of the galaxy. So when it comes to flying around, this is where the Death Spectres are very unique, is that they probably wouldn't have a lot of Astronomicons. No navigators to speak of. Why would they need the navigators? Sure, the navigators help them guide through the warp, but warp travel is pretty useless if you don't have the Astronomicon. Without the Astronomicon, there's no way to navigate in the warp safely. So in other words, your navigators are blind. They can't see. They can't see into the warp. They can't see that blinding light that helps them find the path to the planets that they need to go. So being in the Ghoul Stars means you're going to have to kind of fly blind, which is not a good thing. And it's very hard to patrol such a region without those fast capabilities. This is also something that plays, I think, a significant part into the chapter itself. They have to know an event's going to take place so they can get there in time. If they don't know, which most of the Imperium doesn't know most events that occur until it's too damn late, then it's kind of hard to stop the Pale Wasting from occurring again, isn't it? Thankfully, there is an answer to this problem, and this is, again, probably going to be its own separate lore on theories of what the fuck it is. But the Emperor, when he created this chapter, he gave a vision. That's right, he actually came down from his fucking throne and gave someone a fucking vision. He gave the first chapter master a vision on the planet Occludus. There is a tunnel that leads to a throne made of glass, known as the Shariax. Now, this is actually good proof that the Emperor's Golden Throne is actually based on alien technology, not his own creation. I know it's mind-blowing, right? The Emperor wasn't as original as we thought he was. He instead just seems to be copying alien technology. Like, first we knew about him trying to integrate into the webway, steal some of that Eldar tech, but now it's pretty damn clear that Golden Throne, that is not original. That's probably a replication of something like this, the Shariax. Now, the Shariax, when you sit on it, it amplifies your psychic power a lot. But it's not exactly clear if you have to be a psyker to sit on it, because we don't know the other chapter masters who have sat on this throne. And this is specifically what their Magirs are supposed to do. When you're ascended to chapter master, also known as Magir, you're basically sentenced to death. You're put on this throne, and this throne will slowly sap the life out of your body. But in exchange, you're granted massive psychic power. And this is how they more or less monitor the Ghoul Stars, is by using this massive psychic power, they're able to see around the place. Now, it's not entirely certain what else this thing can do. I mean, shit, if it amplifies your psychic power to 1,000,000 degrees, I can imagine it could probably do a lot. But so far, all we've seen is that somehow the Death Spectres know what's going to happen, when it's going to happen. They seem to respond quicker than anyone else could ever do. So I think it's more of a surveillance tool. It makes sense to me. If it amplifies my psychic power to the point that I can watch a huge sector of space, and I'm told to guard this sector of space, guess what I'm going to fucking do? I'm going to look at every world with my big psychic cerebrum brain, and I'm going to make sure, hey guys, in 10 plus years, this planet's going to have a huge Necron infestation. So get there now. So by the time you get there, it'll have been 10 years already. That seems to be the way the chapter operates. They seem to delve into future, more or less dealing with the weave of fate, kind of a lot like the Ulthway faction of the Eldar, where they can see the threads of the future dangers that will be coming. They see what possibilities there may be, what future encounters they may have, and then they go and respond to it before it happens. Now you may think, Freezer 700, why do you keep talking about the Eldar? I mean, not Eldar, Necrons. Well, that's because there's actually a large amount of Necrons in this region. There's actually a lot. In fact, the Necrons who exist here even established the Bone Kingdom of Drakaz. Kind of a bit of foreshadow there, but essentially all the Necrons there are infested with the Flare virus. Don't know why. It's not explained why. But we can kind of guess that, judging by how dead this sector is, it would make sense that all these Necrons would kind of go insane. They would kind of be a little too crazy, which is really funny to me personally because this is kind of like a wet Necron dream. They love dead areas. Now, the Spectres, on the other hand, seem to specialize in Xeno warfare. In fact, 2 of their artifacts deal specifically with killing Xenos. And that would make sense considering it's such a Xeno area. There's no demon incursions usually. There's really nothing there for any other Xeno to go to. Like orcs. Orcs don't want to go to an area that's dead. There's nothing to win. Necrons, sure, that makes sense. Because then they could just leave everyone the fuck alone and do their own thing, which is fine by me. Eldar, they don't really have a reason to go there. There's no maiden worlds. There's really nothing they can do. And honestly, I can't really imagine the Tau going there because the worlds are dead, as I said. So there's not much for them to expand. And it's far fuck away from their territory. So it's too damn risky. But the aliens that these guys do fight, the Death Spectres, are, as I've said, very alien in nature, very odd, very weird beings. Some beings that only exist in the shadows, so you have to burn them with the flamer. Some of the beings that are so weird and fifth dimensional that they're able to manipulate matter and time in ways that we cannot ever understand. They can just turn a pocket of space into nothingness. It is just weird, weird beings. So this definitely makes them very good Death Watch candidates. In fact, their monastery is also next to another Death Watch outpost, which again makes sense. If this is such a deadly Xeno area, the Death Watch definitely need to be there. Now, interestingly enough, the Death Spectres have a bit of a ritual where they seem to kill themselves. It's not explained again in the novels. There's actually a novel, by the way, where you're watching a Death Watch person, and he is a Death Spectre. Now, the interesting thing is that he doesn't explain if it's just librarians or if it's everybody in the chapter who seems to just go through this ritual of killing themselves. But again, this kind of ties to the Persian thing where they have hymns and mantras that they hum with their soul. And then their comrades and the other librarians who are around this initiate when they die, they hum those hymns and mantras as well to kind of bolster the spirit's strength. Now you may think, well, this is kind of a weird initiation ritual. What the fuck's this all about? Well, you see, the Death Spectres revere death. They love it. They think that death is really great. But, there's a big but here. They believe in death from combat is the greatest thing you can ever do. They're a lot like mortificators in some way where they revere the dead, but they're totally opposite, where they revere the dead and they respect it. They don't necessarily cannibalize it. They don't tamper with the dead bodies. They just simply mummify them and wait for the great revivification. That's pretty much the way they operate. They believe that you kind of have like a Valhallan type idea, and they do pity the lesser humans who exist because they're dying without combat. They're just cowards, they're fucking pussies, blah, blah, blah. So with the Death Spectres, they have these initiates go through these rituals right when they're fucking initiated, where they give them a very, very powerful poison, and they teach them before they eat this poison, they teach them for months to a year, whoever knows, They teach them these mantras and hymns to bolster their spirit. And when they die, this is where it gets really fucking weird. So hang on with me now. When they die, their soul gets kind of carried away in this black river. This black current is what they call it. Now, we've got a lot of ways to interpret this. But the black current is essentially a barrier for the soul to cross over. But your soul is being picked up by the current. So by singing these hymns and mantras, you're able to resist the current. But if you're a psyker, especially a psyker, you can see that there are other entities that are very, very angry and very pissed off on the walls of this current, and they're trying to get in to eat your soul. So it's a very dangerous initiation ritual. In fact, most of their recruits seem to die from this ritual alone, not from the training. And they seem to do this ritual a lot in order to get promoted. It's around the third time that's the hardest, but it's not the deadliest. So the deadliest initiation is when you do it the first time when you die. The other times you die, you're not as likely to die, but it's a lot harder and more strenuous on your soul to come back to life. And I'm not joking. The Death Spectres literally sing their hymns and mantras and will themselves back to life. If they don't, then they fail. Simple as that. But what is this black curtain you're probably thinking of? This black river, this black current. What is this? I have my own theory on this, and it may sound stupid, but I think it's actually because of how dead the ghoul stars are. You see, the ghoul stars are so devoid of life that it would make sense that the warp's presence would be very little, very minuscule. So it would make sense to me that if you die, your soul would be probably traveling to where the warp actually does exist, which would be, of course, where the Emperor is, where the demons are, everything. So it makes sense that your soul is actually pretty helpless, but pretty beneficial at the same time, because then that means that your soul's not going to be immediately blasted into hell. Instead, it's going to be kind of protected as your soul is being pushed and guided towards where hell is. That's my own personal theory. It makes sense to me. But there are other speculations that maybe the Sheriax, that glass throne that the chapter master sits on, does the black current. There's other theories behind it. But I just think that that version makes sense to me. Again, you guys don't have to subscribe to it. It's whatever. And when you will yourself back to life, it could have been a matter of hours that you were dead. And I mean dead. You're not breathing. Your heart's not beating. Your body is decomposing. It could be hours. It could be days. It could be quite a while that you've been dead before you come back to life from the poison that they gave you. So, yeah, that's really, really rough for an initiation trial. Now, as far as the chapter itself, like, was their combat specialty? What do they do in combat? They seem to have a very strong preference for close quarters combat. They have a lot of fucking assault squads. I'm not joking. There was one point where they deployed like 500 assault squads, which was crazy. Not 500 assault squads, my bad. 500 Space Marines equipped with assault jetpacks. There we go. With their chain swords and shit. So they do share some Raven Guard tactics. They do seem to have a specialty for occasionally doing stealth combats. Because there is right now a current campaign they're having against Chaos, where Chaos pretty much took over the world, but they're aiding the Imperial Militia and doing hit and run, guerrilla tactics, hiding in the shadows, sabotaging shit. Very, very interesting. And also their first company is known as the Wargeist. And the Wargeist all use power sights. There are no bolters in this company. There's no guns. It's all scythes, power scythes. So this chapter has a heavy reliance on melee weaponry, which again is kind of interesting, to say the least. But hey, it works for them. They use it very, very well. And being sons of Corvus Corax, they do share similar mutations. So they're albino. They are, if they do have hair, I should reiterate that. Most of them are bald. But if they do have hair, it'd be black. Their eyes are pretty much red because they've degenerated to this redness. They have a few failing organs, which is interesting enough. Like they can't spit acid where other Space Marines could, which is interesting to see that that organ in particular has failed. So their chapter is very unique in a lot of senses. And if you were to ever play them in tabletop, you would probably have to rely more on a melee build rather than a ranged build, which to me I have my own personal gripes about, because I'm like, if you're fighting super weird aliens, I don't think I want to get fucking close to it, especially if it manifests from the shadows or it ages me 100 years. If I just get close to it, I don't think I want to get close to it, but hey, these are super marine, they're super powerful, superhuman, so it does make sense that they don't mind getting close to the Harood, which, you know, doesn't matter how much they age you if you don't have an age limit. But I get kind of a skeptic about that. So besides that, this has been Freedom 700. I am out. I hope you guys enjoyed. This has been a great discussion about the Death Spectres. And as always, like, comment, subscribe. Comment down below if you want to hear more about them. Because, yeah, we haven't even touched the fucking surface, baby. There is a lot.